cardiomyopathy, usually we have other almost death sentence that it is a irreversible disease, but not. 20 to 40% cases we have a reversible causes. So definition of cardiomyopathy by tradition that in the absence of coronary artery disease, hypertension, valvular heart disease, and congenital heart disease, sufficient to explain the observed myocardial abnormality is defined as the cardiomyopathy. WHO classification of cardiomyopathy that basically three standard type of dilated cardiomyopathy, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, and restic cardiomyopathy. Arrhythmogenic right ventricular dysplasia cardiomyopathy or cardiomyopathy of unknown origin are other classification. So far, the ischemic cardiomyopathy is concerned. It is a separate issue, and it is basically a remodeling of the non-infarcted area which leads to the ischemic cardiomyopathy. I'm directly coming to the cases. A 6-month baby with marked breathlessness admitted to the pediatrician. Treated for the pneumonia by the pediatrician, but not improved. The echo was done, and it showed the dilated cardiomyopathy with a very poor prognosis. Usually in the pediatric age group, and in fact, the diagnosis of cardiomyopathy is very, very unusual, and we always look for the reversible cause. So treated for the heart failure, and repeat echo was done. Surprisingly, the patient had a severe coarctation of aorta. You know that if you do the routine echocardiography, it can be misled. You can have missed the diagnosis of very critical coarctation of aorta because of very low flow sometimes in the aorta. So this patient, this infant had a severe coarctation of aorta. This is the severe coarctation, and it was simply balloon dilated, and patient improved. So this is a very hidden cause. DCM in the pediatric age group I discussed first because it's very, very important, because the reversible causes are very important in the pediatric age group. Severe aortic stenosis, sometimes we miss, coarctation of aorta, and L-kappa. L-kappa in 3 structural heart disease which leads to the cardiomyopathy-like situation in the infant. So always look in the detail these all 3 things. Always look for the Doppler study of the descending aorta by suprasternal notch, and by the ECG, you can have some suspicion of L-kappa. In echo also, you can see the absence of left coronary artery in the echo short axis view. So these 3 important causes are there. Another important things that a 30-year-old woman with a gravida of 2 para 1 was referred for the 30-week gestation for the fetal tachycardia. And you know, they have done the fetal echo to found that is a marked tachycardia on patient, and the fetus was in the hydros fetalis. So this patient had an this is the video which shows that the very severe heart tachycardia in the fetus, and that patient has got treated by the lanoxin to the mother, and later on the patient condition improved inside the mother and normally delivered baby. So this is the important cause. DCM in the pediatric case, the arrhythmia is very, very important. The most of the arrhythmia is diagnosed in the fetal cardiomyopathy, in the infantile cardiomyopathy is automatic atrial tachycardia. Is a very, very common. It is usually resistant to drug, leads to the long duration tachycardia leading to the cardiomyopathy. And another one is the permanent junction reentry tachycardia. It is also insidious and persistent tachycardia leading to the cardiomyopathy. VT so far is very, very uncommon. So always look for the arrhythmia in the fetus particularly. PSA-RT is a very common diagnosis in the cardiomyopathy when you diagnose in the pediatric age group. It is one of the commonest cause of the long RV tachycardia in the pediatric age group. So basically, this is the pathway, accessory pathway, which conduction velocity similar to the AV node and accessory pathway. There is a retrograde conduction through the AV, this accessory pathway, leading to the recircuit tachycardia. And basically, it's also very resistant to the the drug, and also sometimes cardioversion, leading to the persistent tachycardia and cause the LV dysfunction. So what are the issues in the DCM in the pediatrics? Children often present very late, fail to recognize the palpitation, they are unable to verbalize the symptom, and attention only after the CHFs. So diagnosis is usually late, and so always look for the reversible cause in the pediatric age group. So far, the reversible cardiac concern in the adults, so many causes are there. Myocarditis, tachycardia induced, stage cardiomyopathy, peripartum cardiomyopathy. These are the major cause, and others of the alcohol, sepsis-induced hypoventilation, toxic, drug-induced, so many causes where we should search for the etiological factor so that we can address the etiological factor. Now, it comes to the arrhythmogenic tachycardiomyopathy. It is the most important potentially reversible condition in the adult, leading to the cardiomyopathies. The early recognition of arrhythmia-induced cardiomyopathy is very, very vital. So basically, a type 1 and a type 2, where the exists called the arrhythmia-induced, where the previous normal lung function, the type 2, where the arrhythmia leads to the exacerbation of already have some mild LV dysfunction, and the arrhythmia basically is precipitated. This is the type 2. What are the offenders? Offenders are rate, or offenders are persistence or duration of arrhythmia. This is the most common cause. Persistence or duration of arrhythmia leading to the LV dysfunction is the most important cause. Asynchronization, like in the LVB, RBB, pre-existing heart disease is also a condition which cause the arrhythmia-induced cardiomyopathy. So, but most important is the persistent and duration of arrhythmia, like atrial fibrillation also. So basically, there is an overlap. When you see the mechanistic overlap, there is a irregular rhythm, this is tachycardia, this is desynchronization, all overlap leading to the cardiomyopathy. So key features is that myocardial dysfunction is basically because of the asynchronous or irregular rhythm or rapid heart rate. So this rapid heart rate for long duration is the main culprit leading to the myocardial dysfunction. What is the proposed pathogenesis? Depletion of myocardial energy, abnormality in intracellular calcium regulation, and the impaired subendocardial flow and vasodilator reserve and oxidative stress and injury. This etiology, this mechanism is almost always in the various diseases. So what are the phases? Phase 1, where if the tachycardia persists for 7 days or 1 week, so this phase the patient has a cellular matrix changes and preserve LV function. Only some changes are in the extracellular matrix. Phase 2, when the 1 to 3 weeks, when there is a neurohormonal activation and upregulation of the renin-angiotensin system. This is the cellular modeling basically. And phase 3 is the LV failure phase, where there is more than 3 week tachycardia persists. It leads to the severe dilatation. Some genetic factor also leads, and the homozygous deletion polymorphism, which is also responsible for the so many genetic factor in the so many disease, is also responsible for here also is the genetic factors. So basic cause of arrhythmia, if you see the induced cardiomyopathy, is ventricular. Ventricular arrhythmia usually have early detection, early treatment. So basically, this is not very common, but supraventricular tachycardia, particularly the atrial fibrillation in adult, which leads to the cardiomyopathies. Here, the irregular rhythm, high rate, asynchronous, both, all three operate and leads to the cardiomyopathy. Which arrhythmia is the most vulnerable? Insidious onset, persistent, and well tolerated is more likely to result in the atrial fibrillation. Two tachycardias, which are also the sinus tachycardia and postural orthostatic tachycardia, but it is not persistent. So these two tachycardia is unlikely to cause the cardiomyopathy. It indicates that the persistence is the most common cause of the tachycardia-induced cardiomyopathy. Now see, this patient is a cardiomyopathy with this ECG. This ECG shows the atrial flutter with a high rate with a variable AV conduction. So the question arises that whether this tachycardia leads to the cardiomyopathy or cardiomyopathy leads to the arrhythmia. So this is sometimes difficult to decide. It is basically just like in a chicken-egg dilemma. It's a chicken first or egg first like dilemma, which is responsible for the primary arrhythmia or which is called the cardiomyopathy. So if you do the whether the patient is irreversible or reversible, MRI is very, very important to differentiate. So if you had a late gadolinium enhancement, suggests underlying scar and the very likely cause that irreversible. Another thing is we do the mapping of the endocardium. We get the endocardial high voltage, and this is also shows the if the area is very high, it is also shows the irreversibility. So a very high sensitive is two things: MRI this and this endocardial mapping. Voltage mapping. This is the endocardial voltage mapping basically by the CARTO, and it shows the voltage area more than 32 LV endocardium. It shows the irreversibility. So basically, diagnosis of criteria for arrhythmia-induced cardiomyopathy. So recovery of the LV function after the control of arrhythmia by the rate control or cardioversion or RFA. So RFA is very, very helpful in treatment of the arrhythmia-induced cardiomyopathy. So by any means, if you rate control and LV improves, so diagnosis from cardiomyopathy stand. And if the rapid decline of the LV function following by the recurrence of arrhythmia, it also stamp the diagnosis of cardiomyopathy. When you suspect by history, suspect by ECG, frequent APC, VPC, and paroxysmal AF, echo early stage only the mild dilatation with arrhythmia only must suspect that case may be the arrhythmia-induced cardiomyopathy. Management, what management? Initial management is similar to those of the reduced heart failure like ACE inhibitor, ARB, ORNI, diuretic, beta blocker like things, but aggressive effort always we should do to restore the sinus rhythm or at least to control the heart rate. Three methods: the RF ablation, if it is treated, if it is the paroxysmal AF, you can do the RF ablation. Various re-entry tachycardia, so treatment of choice is RF ablation, or you can use the different drugs to restore the rate or rhythm. Or AF patient, if a recent history, you can do the cardioversion, try, and the sinus rhythm can be restored. So there is a three methods. Most common cause of arrhythmia-induced cardiomyopathy in adults are atrial fibrillation. Here the circle is like atrial fibrillations leading to the heart failure. Sometimes heart failure leads to the atrial fibrillation. Sometimes it is in the late stage. It is very, very difficult to pinpoint whether which one is responsible for which one. So it's always better to control the rate or try to restore the sinus rhythm to improve the LV function. So rate better or rhythm better is always there is a dilemma, AF rate or versus rhythm approach. So it is said that if you have a AF with LV dysfunction, try to restore the rhythm, it will improve the LV function. Otherwise, the rate control is also good in different trial. Another important thing is the VPCs, ventricular premature complex, is like the quas in the myocardium. PVC burden is the important thing is to know what are the burden. So threatening is the 10,000 or 20,000. It is said in the various trials that more than 20% PVC baseline or more than 20,000 is the absolute volume leads to the cardiomyopathy. What are the different type, which is the more offender VPC? If you have a long PVC curious duration, if you have an epicardial origin of the focus, if you have an interpolated PVC, or if a PVC arising from the LV or long PVC coupling interval or high PVC, these are the some VPC characteristic which can lead to the cardiomyopathy. So whenever you see the VPC in the ECG, look for that. Whether it is the interpolated, whether it is the QRS width is very high, all is a polymorphic. So this can be a dangerous PVC which can lead to the cardiomyopathy if it is a burden is very, very high. This is the epicardial PVC characteristic. I'm not going detail. Interpolated VPC is very, very notorious, and you diagnose by fixed interval between this PVCs, and that lead to the interpolated, the no compensatory pause after the PVC that can lead to the cardiomyopathy if the burden is very high. Morphology, LV origin, I have already told that these are the more offender. You can treat the PVC by beta blocker or amiodarone, or if it is burden is very high, you can do for the RF ablation. You can identify the focus and you can do the ablation. And after ablation, it has been seen that many patients has improved by LV function. Class 1C drugs should always be try to avoid in the LV dysfunction because of the proarrhythmias. Catheter ablation, the few point, the catheter ablation is the procedure of choice if patient diagnose that arrhythmia-induced cardiomyopathy, particularly when the PVC is responsible for the cardiomyopathy. So it's a very good result. So just protocol you see if a patient of cardiomyopathy, do the Holter monitoring is very, very helpful in the diagnosis of arrhythmia-induced cardiomyopathy. If you find the PVC by 10 to 20%, must suspect it, give a maximum dose of beta blocker, or better to do a ablation. Similar in the AF, you can diagnose by the Holter and you can diagnose the arrhythmia-induced cardiomyopathy. Now next, and then interesting is the alcohol cardiomyopathy. You all know that this William Loewen Mackenzie, which coined the term the alcoholic cardiomyopathy. He also diagnosed cardiomyopathy very long back in the Munich heart, beer heart, and reported by the German pathologists. So look at the offenders. Contaminated in the beer, such as the cobalt or arsenic, thiamine deficiency, which is called the Western beriberi, or it is a dose dependent. This term is used sometimes is the lifetime total alcoholic intake. That must be. So which is offender, which is culprit, beverage specific, or it is a genetic, sometime HLA8 on S, or DD the more polymorphism of the S, this S inhibitors is also sometimes genetic predisposition, probably yes, or environmental, probably also yes, but it is sure that alcoholic cardiomyopathy is a quantity specific, not the quality specific. So quantity is very, very important. So what quantity is culprit? So data suggests that 1 or 2 drink in the men and 1 drink in the women will benefit the cardiovascular system over the time, the various trials, particularly the red wine. Moderate drinking reduce the incidence and mortality of coronary artery disease, heart failure in the various trial. But if you use more than moderate, alcohol toxicity is likely to be there, and it can lead to the alcohol cardiomyopathy. What is the culprit amount of alcohol? I am sure that you must be interesting to know what is the absolute value of the alcohol which you leads the cardiomyopathy. This is the absolute. Most patients with develop alcoholic cardiomyopathy have been drinking more than 80 to 90 grams, and this corresponds to approximately 8 bottles of beer, 1 liter of wine, and 1.5 liter of the hard liquor every day. I don't think that this much is consumed by the so many people. So what is the perplexity? This says that there is a relation of alcohol with the heart. In moderation, alcohol has shown the definite afford a certain degree of protection, but after moderation, it has leads to the disease. So if you see the J-like graph, J-shaped graph, if you start from the here, is the no alcohol, person taking no alcohol, the risk of the death is here. If you're taking alcohol, start taking alcohol, amount increasing, your morbidity or mortality decreases. When you start continue to increase, the mortality reach here. So at some point, you have been a very perplexing situation that at this point of alcohol intake, it is equivalent to the risk of the death with the patients not taking the alcohol. It's a very, very confused situation. One patient is taking so much alcohol, same mortality rate. One patient is taking no alcohol, same mortality rate. So it's totally confused. So total quantity is important. So 7 to 8 standard drink per day for 5 years are a risk for development of asymptomatic cardiomyopathy. This is the equivalence dose. You know the better that 12 ounce of this beer, 8 ounce of the malt liquor, or 12%, 5 ounce of the wine, or 1.5 ounce of the whiskey are equivalent. Same thing. Alcoholic cardiomyopathies, these are the different mechanisms. I'm not going to detail, but it leads to the cardiomyopathy if you take more than moderate dose. Females are, the more commonly develop alcohol cardiomyopathy by men, but females, if less amount is similar to the, the more amount in the male. This is likely because of the greater fat and less water in the female. It's called, less alcohol metabolizing enzyme and such alcohol dehydrogenase. So women may develop cardiomyopathy earlier at the lower lifetime compared to the men. So at the more risk. So this is just saying that big heart doesn't mean that you have a more space to put in the more alcohol. Now, another one is a very important, is the peripartum cardiomyopathy. I'm going very fast. That is about half of the patients of PPCM recover without any complications. So don't say it is an irreversible condition and it's a death point. There is a two-head theory is there. The host susceptibility, genetic predisposition, or systemic angiogenic imbalance. But most promising etiological factor is a myocarditis with a high level of the inflammatory markers, TNF and interleukins. Some say that the fetal cell escape into the maternal circulation, leading to the inflammatory cascade and lead to the cardiomyopathy. So what are the offenders? Multiparity, elderly gravida, family history, Asian ethnicity, smoking, diabetes, hypertension, disorder of pregnancy, malnutrition, prolonged use of tocolytics, genetic predisposition, and viral infection, and oxidative stress. These are the different offenders which lead to the cardiomyopathy. Regardless of the recovery, Second pregnancy is not recommended in this patient due to the high recurrence rate, 30 to 50%. What are the prognosis? The persistence of cardiac dysfunction more than 12 months, 6 to 12 months after the initial diagnosis, PPCM usually indicate irreversible problem. Treatment is a broad scheme. B for the bromocriptines. The prolactin has been identified as a culprit sometimes. So in different studies, so bromocriptine is useful, 2.5 milligram BD. Oral heart failure drug as usual. Anticoagulant is important in the PPCM because high chance of thromboembolism. Diuretic as usual, but you should avoid the ACE inhibitor, ARB or MRBs in the evaporator also during pregnancy. After pregnancy, you can give. Another one is the stress cardiomyopathy, particularly during the corona period. A lot of the broken heart syndrome has occurred during the COVID-19 and pandemic. The different name has given the broken heart syndrome, Takotsubo cardiomyopathy, apical ballooning, stress-induced cardiomyopathy. This is a very typical, the apical ballooning in the Takotsubo cardiomyopathies. Different mechanism has been advised, and basically because of the increased catecholamine toxicity, which is a major contributor because of the high level of adrenaline, noradrenaline leading to the cardiomyopathy. So different classification are also put forward: the Takotsubo type, classical type, reverse type, mid-ventricular type, localized type. Different type you can diagnose by the echo. And usually they present with the acute coronary syndrome-like situation because of the various ECG changes give rise to the STT changes and looks like an acute coronary syndrome. Usually patient undergoes the coronary angiography, which is the normal coronary most of the time. So this cannot be distinguished between Takotsubo and STMI at presentation sometimes, particularly in the adult patients. Young patient, you can diagnose it. So going to the management, beta blocker usually should be given. And one thing that it is because of the high level of adrenaline, noradrenaline, so inotropes should be avoided if patient is admitted. Don't give too much dobutamine and dopamine like noradrenaline because it is itself is a culprit. So diuretic as usual, ACE inhibitors you can give, ARNI you can give. Better to give an alpha and beta blocker at a low dose. Usually beta blocker avoided in the congestive heart failure, but here you can give a low dose of alpha plus beta blocker because of this antagonize the catecholamine. Now coming to the another irreversible and potentially reversible cardiomyopathy, diabetic cardiomyopathy. I remember one patient of cardiomyopathy who underwent in the AICD because of the cardiomyopathy, and later on after 3 months he had an infection in the AICD, and later on the AICD implanted. When the echo is seen in the different center, it came to be the normal, and the previous report also seen in the cardiomyopathy. So diabetic cardiomyopathy is potentially reversible if you some metabolic the factors are removed at that time of cardiomyopathy. They usually recover, and particularly in the echo, if you see the very normal size or very mildly dilated but severe elevated dysfunction, suspect the diabetic cardiomyopathy, one of the clue. 55%, one study shows in the JAMA that 55% of diabetic population has a cardiomyopathy. Multifaceted and span metabolic structure and function changes are there. Recently, SGLT2 has been used in the diabetic patient, even in the absence of the heart failure, and it has been shown that it reduces the hospitalization. Diuretic effect and metabolic shifting of the ketone body may be responsible for that. These are some drugs which are leading to the cardiomyopathy. So anti-cancer drugs are very, very important. And before giving every dose, the physician choice for the echocardiography, ask for the echocardiography to see the effect of this anti-cancer drugs. So it is important cause of cardiomyopathy, and if you detect early, it can be very, very reversible. Monoclonal antibodies, tyrokinase inhibitors, alkylating agent, cocaine. Two important I am going to be discussing the bath salt and scorpion envenomation. These are the bath salt. This is had an amphetamine and cocaine-like effect. And federal law has recently blamed this ingredient they have used by the various people during the bath. Scorpion innervation, they produce a cardiogenic shock-like situation, catecholamine release, and massive vasoconstriction, leading to the increase in the afterload and myocardial phase. There is a characterized by the striking rest in the LV contractility. They usually present in the cardiogenic shock. So better to give, if you develop in the village, better to give the antivenom, because before coming to the hospital, sometimes this patient collapsed. You know, the other reversible cause are the myocarditis, which is inflammatory disease of the heart. Coxsackie virus is the most common. Rheumatic
I'm sorry
myocarditis.
to interrupt, but time is running short.
Yeah.
Deepak, please.
Okay. So coronavirus also, you know that recently have a lot of problem with the cardiomyopathy. Another a lot of patients are getting admission with the COVID cardiomyopathy. Cardiomyopathy related to the OSA is also important. So if you give a CPAP and BPAP, CPAP or BiPAP, you can improve the cardiomyopathy in this condition. These are some other causes which are the potentially reversible, including the pheochromocytoma and Cushing syndrome at the time of cardiomyopathy if you diagnose correctly. Trace element, cobalt, arsenic, and selenium deficiencies also lead to the cardiomyopathy. You must always look for that. And the effect of this two important electrolytes, chronic hypophosphatemia and chronic hypocalcemia, is also very important cause of cardiomyopathy. So in summary, tailor-made approach should always be due to the all patient needs. Underdiagnosed etiology is very, very common, and better prognosis than ischemic cardiomyopathy, remember, and always look for the secondary cause of the cardiomyopathy. Thank you very much, and we hope you learned something.
Thank you, all the chairpersons and speakers. I'm cutting short here because of the shortage of time. I'm sorry, Deepak, it was a wonderful talk, and I should have put it as a guest lecture if I knew there was so much material in this. I learned a lot of new things. Anyway,
Dr. Birmani,
yeah.
Dr. Birmani, actually,
No
this was an
questions,
excellent
please. No
masterly lecture.
Yeah.
And lots of comments in the chat box that they want to start the alcohol in moderation.
Yeah, that's what I said.
So it is one comment needed from Dr. Deepak Gupta.
You can discuss it over
those who
dinner.
are not taking, should they start?
No, you please discuss it over dinner or next time when we meet physically. I think, sure. Or look at the J curve and then decide yourselves. So I think you stop sharing the screen. From the cousin of cardiology, we'll go to the other comorbidities of diabetes. And we have a wonderful session. Speakers are Dr. Ashok Taneja from Gurgaon, Dr. D.P. Singh from Bhagalpur, and Dr. Saibal Gua from Patna.